She was 18, just graduated, bright future. She told her dad, "I love you," and went to Target for a gift. 20 minutes later, she was gone. The cameras caught everything. A stranger, a shadow, a silent abduction in broad daylight. What happened next would expose police failure, corporate negligence, and a predator hiding in plain sight. This is the story of Kelsey Smith and how her death changed everything.
Welcome to The Silent Witness, where we highlight true crime news, unsolved mysteries, unfold chilling stories and events around us to educate and provide information on how we can stay proactive, informed, be security and safety conscious in our environment. The Silent Witness is your go-to destination for gripping accounts of real-life crimes, missing persons, cold cases, and unexplained events. Want to support us and appreciate our craft? Click like, comment, and hit the subscribe button now. Please note that all related materials referenced in this video were majorly sourced from either official court or police documents, reference statements, or other reputable sources, weeding out the speculation theories and unverified information.
Some families seem too good to be real, rooted in love, raised with discipline, guided by faith, the kind that hug you tight before bed and raise you strong enough to fight for yourself. The Smiths were that family. Greg and Missy Smith had 5 children, 4 daughters and 1 son. They weren't wealthy, they weren't flashy, but they were deeply, unshakably close. They shared meals, shared laughs, shared everything. Greg, a Navy veteran, served in law enforcement for over 20 years. He brought structure, sharp instincts, and an unwavering moral compass into the home. Missy was nurturing, sharp, emotionally fierce. She worked in the healthcare field and made sure the kids grew up tough but kind. They were a team, unbreakable. Rules were firm. If you were late, you were grounded 2 days for every minute. You always communicated, always came home, and you never ever ignored your instincts. But more than the rules, there was love. Unconditional, loud, constant. And in the middle of that strong, vibrant household was Kelsey. Born May 3, 1989, Kelsey and Smith was the light between the cracks. A bright, magnetic personality that lit up any room she entered. Mischievous, charming, emotional, fierce. She wasn't perfect, just perfectly herself. She was the kind of person who kept her talents a secret, just so she could shock you later. If she had a choir solo, she wouldn't tell you. She'd wait until the show started, then step into the spotlight and own it. She was in the marching band, the theater club, choir, track team. She played clarinet, ran long distances, sang beautifully, and carried an impossible amount of energy in her 5 feet 5 inches frame. And she was a giver. If someone forgot lunch at band camp, she brought extra. If a friend had a birthday, she didn't just say happy birthday. She brought a balloon for every year they'd lived. She saved up to buy her first car, a beat-up $400 Buick Regal, then spent the same amount on a stereo system. It got stolen. She laughed about it anyway. But all that love she gave to others, she saved something special for one person in particular, John. They met while working together at AMC theaters. He was kind, calm, steady, the type of person who didn't speak to impress, but when he spoke, Kelsey listened. They clicked instantly. It wasn't a whirlwind romance. It was rooted, respectful, quietly passionate. Kelsey started dating John in January of 2007. By June, they were inseparable. They worked together, hung out after shifts, went to movies, drove around, dreamed about the future. John was her first love, and maybe her forever. How serious was it? Serious enough that Kelsey turned down a promotion at AMC because company policy would have forced her to break up with him. That's not a high school crush. That's commitment. And on June 2nd, 2007, they were about to celebrate something special. Their 6-month anniversary. Kelsey had big plans. A surprise gift. A special night. Something thoughtful. John already had something for her. A promise ring. He hadn't told her yet. It was going to be the kind of night they remembered forever. And it was. But not for the reasons either of them could have imagined. That morning was normal. Kelsey had a pool party for a friend. That afternoon, she went with her siblings and dad to Old Shawnee Days, a local carnival filled with fried food, music, and tradition. She was happy, sun-kissed, laughing, texting John, planning their night. She needed one thing before their date, a gift box for the scrapbook she had made for him. So she told her dad she was heading to Target. Said it would be quick. Said, "Love you. Be right back." Then got in her car and drove off. It was just 8 minutes away. Still light outside. Still safe. Still normal. She called her mom from inside the store, asking what aisle the boxes were in. Kelsey didn't know it, but as she asked her mom about wrapping paper, a man was watching her. He had followed her into the store. Not to shop. Not by accident. But because he chose her. The surveillance footage told the story later. Kelsey entered the store at 6:55 p.m. Behind her, a man in a white t-shirt followed. Never close enough to draw attention, but never far enough to lose her. He pretended to browse, lingered, watched. Kelsey, unaware, picked out her items. She bought the scrapbook, a gift box, a few personal touches. She checked out, walked to her car, opened the passenger door to place the gift bag, then walked around to get in. That's when the shadow moved. In 16 seconds, everything changed. The footage is blurry, but you can see the shift. The figure rushes in, pushes her, slams the door. The car drives off. Kelsey Smith is gone. 7:30 p.m. John waits at the meeting spot. She doesn't show. 7:40 p.m. Still no text. No call. He's not panicking yet, but something's wrong. He calls her. Voicemail. Calls again. Nothing. So he drives to the Target. With Kelsey's sister Lindsay. Her car isn't there. He calls her parents. Missy, still driving home from Iowa, tells Lindsay to have Greg call the police. Greg knows the signs. He doesn't waste time. Kelsey is never late. And if she is, she always calls. That silence? It's not her. By 9:30 p.m., Kelsey's grandparents are combing the mall. Then they see it. Her Buick Regal, parked in the Macy's lot, half a mile from Target. Her purse is still inside. The Target bag. The scrapbook. But no keys. No phone. No Kelsey. And then, that paper bag handle, sticking out of the trunk. Greg freezes. He's not a dad in that moment. He's a cop again, bracing for what he might see. Police arrive. Pop the trunk. Empty. Relief. But then more dread. Where is she? Police immediately secure the vehicle. Start dusting for prints. Take it to the crime lab. But Missy isn't going home. She's not waiting. She drags Greg to the police station. They answer every question, offer full cooperation. They want one thing, find their daughter. The next day, police review the Target footage. They see the man in the white shirt, trailing her, leaving first, waiting in the parking lot. Then, the abduction. They go public, release the footage. Tips start pouring in. One tip changes everything. A man watching the news sees the truck, turns to his coworker. "Isn't that your truck?" The coworker's name? Edwin Roy Hall, 26 years old. Wife, son. Lives in Olathe, just miles away. He leaves work early. Says he's sick. Starts packing. By the time police find him, he's getting ready to flee. With his family. They pull him over. Bring him in. He denies everything. Then they tell him his fingerprint was found on the seatbelt in Kelsey's car. And just like that, the mask slips. But what Edwin did to Kelsey, what happened in those missing 4 days, that part of the story hasn't been told yet. Because this isn't just a kidnapping. It's the beginning of something far darker.
Want to support us and appreciate our craft? Click like, comment, and hit the subscribe button now.
Some stories end when the victim is found. But Kelsey Smith's story was never going to be that simple. Because the real question wasn't just who did this to her. It was why. And once you asked that, you opened a door you couldn't close. Her killer, Edwin Roy Hall, had been caught. He confessed. He was behind bars. But that was just the beginning. You see, predators don't start at murder. They graduate to it. And when investigators began digging into Edwin's life, what they found was a trail of warning signs no one ever stopped to read. Let's rewind. Before Kelsey, before Target, Edwin was adopted as a child, but that didn't last. Because by the time he was a teenager, his adoptive family gave him back. Not placed, not transferred, returned, like a defective object. Why? He'd threatened his sister with a knife. After that, he bounced through the system. A ticking time bomb of rage, rejection, and something far more sinister. At 16, he threatened a neighbor with a baseball bat. At 18, he aged out of foster care. At 19, he married. And shortly after, he became a father. But Edwin didn't change. He just got better at hiding. Because predators don't always lurk in shadows. Sometimes, they mow the lawn, wave to neighbors, push their kids on the swings. That's how evil survives. It smiles. His online profile. It listed his nickname as Jack. His hobbies? Eating small children and harming animals. People thought it was a joke. But jokes don't leave bruises. And jokes don't strangle 18-year-old girls in the woods. The truth? Edwin had been spiraling for years. And Kelsey was not his first attempt. Just weeks before her murder, a woman in Kansas City was attacked near her car at the river market. The man tried to force her inside. She fought back. He ran. When she saw the news coverage of Kelsey's abduction, she called the police immediately. Same build, same face, same eyes. And that's when something darker came into focus. This was a pattern. Edwin didn't just see Kelsey at Target. He wasn't there to shop. He was prowling. Earlier that day, he had been spotted at a restaurant near the mall, flirting aggressively with waitresses, being rude, making them uncomfortable. He dined and dashed, left behind a fake wallet, almost like he was staging a story, creating an alibi. But why? Because predators rehearse. They practice control. They study fear. And Edwin wasn't improvising. He had followed Kelsey, watched her from the parking lot, entered Target after her, lingered near her every step of the way. Then, he left first. Not because he forgot something, but because he had one final thing to grab. A weapon. The airsoft pistol was in his truck. It wasn't loaded because it couldn't be, but it looked real enough. To Kelsey, it was a death sentence. He returned to the parking lot, waited by her car, watched as she placed the gift bag in the front seat. Then, in a burst of violence too fast to process, he shoved her inside, took the wheel, and drove away. She was alive, but already gone. Investigators believe she was forced to drive at gunpoint. Her DNA was found on the tip of the airsoft pistol, likely from biting down in desperation. Edwin sat behind her, controlling her every move. One wrong turn, one scream. She dies. So she drove. Because maybe, just maybe, if she stayed calm, she'd live. But Edwin had other plans. He took her across the state line, to Longview Lake, a place that would become her grave. There, in the dark woods, he choked her until she lost consciousness, brought her back, then did it again, and again. He wasn't in a rush. He wanted to watch her suffer. And yet, she fought. Kelsey was trained in self-defense by her father. She kicked, bit, clawed. She bled under her fingernails trying to stop him. But he had size, surprise, control, and a weapon that didn't have to be real, just convincing. When she finally stopped breathing, he didn't run. He arranged sticks on her body, not to hide her, but to stage her. Some officers thought it looked ritualistic. Others thought he wanted it to look that way. But one thing was certain. Edwin was trying to leave a message. Or maybe erase one. 2 days later, he returned to the scene. With bleach. Yes. He came back. He poured it over her body. Her shirt had been pink. When police found her, it was white. He thought it would destroy DNA. He didn't know it wouldn't erase the truth. Because the damage had already been done. And not just to Kelsey. When investigators searched his home, they found something disturbing. His clothing, the ones he wore the night of the murder, had all been individually bagged, each piece sealed, labeled, as if he planned to destroy them one by one, almost like he had done this before, or planned to do it again. And then came the twist. Inside one of the bags, DNA was found. Not just Kelsey's, but his wife's. So what did he do after murdering Kelsey? Go home, pretend nothing happened, and crawl into bed with the mother of his child. It's hard to know what's worse, the crime or the calm that followed. But for Kelsey's family, the horror was just beginning. They had fought tooth and nail to get cell phone data from Verizon, to locate their daughter, and Verizon refused, said they needed proper terminology. They should have used the word locate, not ping, a word. That's what stopped the search. Not technology, not logistics, a word. And in those lost hours, Kelsey died. Her parents, Greg and Missy, were devastated. But they were also angry, and they weren't going to let her death be in vain. They sat down with Verizon's legal team, pushed for change, and just months later they helped pass a law, the Kelsey Smith Act. It required phone companies to hand over location data to law enforcement in life-threatening emergencies. No more loopholes, no more word games, just action. That law is now in effect in over 30 states. It has saved lives, real people, real outcomes. But Kelsey's killer didn't care, and he wasn't finished trying to twist the truth. His defense team tried everything, blamed his childhood, claimed he was abused, said he never had a chance. But everyone has a choice. And Edwin, he chose evil. His MySpace page showed a fascination with violence. His history showed a pattern of escalation. And yet, somehow no one stopped him. But there was one more thing. Something that chilled even seasoned investigators. In July 2007, a month after Kelsey's murder, he was charged with aggravated indecent liberties involving a 14-year-old. It had happened years earlier. A consensual relationship, they claimed. But a grown man and a 14-year-old child? There is no consent. There is only exploitation. And the question now is, how many others were there? Because predators don't just stop. Kelsey wasn't Edwin's first choice. She was just the one he succeeded with. And that leaves a terrifying possibility. There may be more victims, more silence, more families who never got justice. So what now? Kelsey's family got a conviction. Edwin pled guilty to avoid the death penalty. He's serving life without parole. But in doing so, he avoided trial, avoided testimony, avoided the full truth. And there's one person who may know more than she's admitted. His wife. Because when Edwin was arrested, she was with him, packing up the car, leaving town. And during the court proceedings, she was banned from visiting him in jail because she was caught flashing him. Yes.
Want to support us and appreciate our craft? Click like, comment, and hit the subscribe button now.
While the Smith family mourned their daughter, this woman was sneaking into the jail to expose herself to the man who had raped and murdered an 18-year-old girl. Let that sink in. This wasn't just a predator acting alone. This was a sickness, spreading. So what did she really know? Was she just a bystander? Or did she see signs and ignore them? And what other secrets was Edwin keeping? Because buried inside his home, his truck, his hard drive, might be answers to crimes no one even knows to ask about yet. The police never released all the files. And the Smith family? They still have questions. So do we. We'll go inside the interrogation room, where Edwin's lies started to unravel, where his mask slipped, where investigators pulled back the curtain and saw the monster underneath.
Want to support us and appreciate our craft? Click like, comment, and hit the subscribe button now.
In the end, every monster tells on himself, not with a confession, not with remorse, but with ego. And when Edwin Hall sat down in that sterile interrogation room, flanked by his lawyer, he didn't know it yet, but the walls were already closing in. It was June 6, 2007. 4 days since Kelsey Smith had vanished. 1 day since her body had been found. Hours since Edwin had been pulled over, packing his family into the car, claiming to go on vacation. But he wasn't going anywhere now. And inside that cold, gray room, his story began to collapse. At first, he played the part. Calm, measured, innocent. He said he'd been at Target. Sure, he saw the girl. Said she had nice legs. Then, almost like a punchline, said she looked 12 after seeing her face. Cops exchanged glances. A red flag. A subconscious admission. Because innocent men don't describe victims like that. But Edwin wasn't just making mistakes. He was testing boundaries. Pushing. Gauging reactions. The truth? He still thought he could get away with it. That is, until they told him about the fingerprint. The one lifted from the metal clip of the seatbelt in Kelsey's car. The one that matched his print. Exactly. Suddenly, the performance cracked. Edwin went silent. Shifted. Sweat formed at his temple. Then denial. Panic. And finally, the unraveling. But what shocked detectives wasn't just what he said. It was what he didn't. Because when they told him Kelsey was dead, he didn't flinch. Didn't ask how. Didn't say, I didn't do it. He just stared. Then cursed. Then asked what they really had. It wasn't grief. It wasn't fear. It was calculation. Edwin believed he was smarter. That he'd outmaneuver the system. But predators forget. Evidence doesn't lie. Because while he was playing chess in his mind, the lab was playing checkmate. Inside Kelsey's car, they found his DNA on the steering wheel. Her saliva on the airsoft gun. His fingerprints in multiple places. Inside his own home, a horror show. Every item of clothing he wore that night had been individually bagged. Shoes, pants, shirt, belt, each sealed, marked, hidden. But one mistake was fatal. Inside those bags, they found Kelsey's DNA. On the waistband of his shorts, on his shirt, and in his car. It was a 1 in 280 billion match. And then came the real twist. His wife's DNA was there too. Which meant one thing. Edwin had gone home, tucked his child in, and then had sex with his wife after what he did to Kelsey. Let that sink in. Kelsey was still missing. Her body abandoned in the woods. And Edwin was living life as if nothing had happened. But evil doesn't stay quiet forever. And soon cracks began to show. Because while Edwin sat in jail, pretending to be untouchable, the community rallied behind the Smith family. Candlelight vigils, masses of mourners, thousands of voices chanting the same name, Kelsey. Her photo flooded the news. Her smile haunted every screen. And Edwin? He was no longer the predator. He was the prey. At his arraignment, the courtroom was packed. Her parents sat just feet away. He didn't look at them. He couldn't. He was being charged with capital murder, aggravated kidnapping, rape, sodomy. But still, his smirk lingered. Because Edwin thought he had a chance. A shot at escape. His lawyers filed for a change of venue. Claimed the town was too biased. That he couldn't get a fair trial. What they really meant was, everyone knew what he did. But Missy Smith, Kelsey's mother, wasn't buying it. She met privately with the U.S. attorney. Begged for a federal case. Crossing state lines meant the feds could take it. But the response? We believe Kansas should prosecute this. Missy stared back. Furious. You mean to tell me, she said, that you didn't have the balls to take this case? That moment changed everything. Because when Edwin's defense team found out Missy had gone to the U.S. attorney, they panicked. They knew that if the feds got involved, the death penalty was back on the table. And so, the very next day, a hearing was scheduled. But it wasn't for a venue change. It was for a plea. Suddenly, Edwin wanted to talk. Suddenly, the predator was scared. And so, to avoid the death penalty, he pled guilty. To everything. Every charge. Every horror. Every act of violence. But even in that moment, he didn't apologize. Not really. He just said, I'm sorry for what I've done. As if sorry meant something. For the Smith family, it was bittersweet. There would be no trial. No cross-examination. No cameras in the courtroom. But there would also be no appeal. No parole. No freedom ever again. And that was worth it. Because Edwin Hall would spend the rest of his life locked inside a concrete box, caged like the monster he is, forgotten. But the story didn't end there, because as the dust settled, questions still lingered. Why did his wife defend him for so long? Why did she flash him during a jail visit, after knowing what he did? And how many women had Edwin stalked before Kelsey? That's what investigators want to know. Because buried inside years of police reports, tip calls, witness statements, are whispers, unresolved cases, women who got away or didn't speak up. And one question remains: was Kelsey Smith his first victim, or just the one we all learned about?
Want to support us and appreciate our craft? Click like, comment, and hit the subscribe button now.
Kelsey Smith is gone, but the story didn't end in those woods. It began there, because after her death, something strange happened. The system that failed her started to change, and the girl who couldn't be saved started saving others. This is the part of the story they don't always tell you. The part where grief doesn't just break you, it builds you. Where justice isn't served by courts, but by consequences. And Kelsey's parents, Missy and Greg, were not about to let her death be reduced to a headline. They knew something the public didn't. Kelsey could have been found sooner. If only someone had listened. Let's go back. When Kelsey went missing on June 2nd, 2007, her family did what any desperate family would do. They begged for help. They called her phone, called Verizon, pleaded with the company to ping her last location. Verizon refused, not because they couldn't, but because of a word. They told the Smiths they didn't use the correct terminology. They should have said locate instead of ping. That's what stopped the search. A single word. As hours passed, as Kelsey's phone moved, as her life was slowly stolen, the Smiths kept calling, kept begging, and Verizon tried to upsell them on a better phone plan. You heard that right. While Kelsey was missing, representatives were offering minute upgrades. That failure cost time. And in cases like Kelsey's, time is everything. For days later, after police finally got help from a Sprint engineer, Kelsey's phone was located using CSLI, cell site location information. Within 45 minutes, her body was found. But by then, she had already been dead for days. And so Missy and Greg made a decision. They weren't just going to bury their daughter. They were going to bury every excuse the system gave them. They sat down with Verizon's regional president, confronted their legal team. The response? We're sorry you feel that way. We followed protocol. Next time, use the right word. But there was something else. Shortly after the meeting, that Verizon executive lost his job. Why? Because he apologized. Because he told the truth. And in corporate America, truth is a liability. So the Smiths went bigger. They fought for a bill, not just in Kansas, but across the country, the Kelsey Smith Act. It mandates that cell phone companies must provide location data to law enforcement in life-threatening emergencies. No red tape, no corporate scripts, no missed chances. Since its passage in 2009, the act has saved dozens of lives. And now it's law in over 30 states. Some people survive tragedy, others transform it. Kelsey's family did both. But they didn't stop there. Greg ran for public office, won a seat in the Kansas House, then the Kansas Senate. He focused on victims' rights, on safety, on making sure no other family would have to sit by the phone and hear, "Sorry, we can't help you." Missy became a national speaker, educator, a fierce voice for families. And together they built something out of the ashes, the Kelsey Smith Foundation. Its mission? To protect youth, to educate families, and to arm the next generation with tools Kelsey never had a chance to use. They visit schools, police departments, capitals. They teach people how to recognize threats, how to respond to danger, how to fight back when fighting is all you have left. Because Kelsey didn't die because she was weak. She died because the system didn't move fast enough. But her legacy, it moves like wildfire. And here's the part that will never leave you. 1 week after her death, her little sister asked to go to the mall. The same mall, next to the same Target, where her big sister was taken. Missy and Greg didn't say no, because if they did, Edwin Hall would win. And that's not the story they were going to tell. They refused to let evil dictate their lives, refused to let a predator write the ending. So they said yes, not because they weren't scared, but because courage isn't the absence of fear. It's standing in its face and saying, not today. As for Edwin Hall, he pled guilty to all charges, was sentenced to life without parole. He will never walk free, never see daylight outside prison walls, never raise his son. And that's the only sympathy the Smiths have left for Edwin's son, a child who never chose this, a life altered by one man's sickness. But Edwin's punishment didn't come from bars alone. It came from knowing that he tried to erase Kelsey and made her immortal instead. Because now, when someone goes missing, their phone gets pinged, authorities move faster, and sometimes lives are saved because of Kelsey. And yet, there's still one question that echoes. What if? What if Verizon had said yes? What if the gun hadn't looked real? What if someone had noticed Edwin's obsession before it turned deadly? What if the system hadn't failed? We'll never know. But here's what we do know. Kelsey was strong. She fought. And in the face of unimaginable fear, she resisted. And now, she stands as a warning, a lesson, a legacy. She went to Target and never came home. But because of her, thousands of others have. So when you hear her name, let it remind you, evil doesn't always look like a monster. Sometimes it holds the door, smiles at you in line, follows you without a sound. Be aware, be loud. And if anyone ever tries to steal your life, fight like hell, because Kelsey did. And through her, so many more got the chance to live.